Greetings and welcome to Teaching Tips and Thoughts. In this video, I am going to show how I've used a practice lesson in the past to help out my students and get them an early start on the class and help them get familiar with the class. So why do I use a practice lesson? Well, in one way, it gives the students a chance to explore the course before the course has started. So they can actually look around and get an idea of what the course structure is like before jumping right into that first lesson the first week. So they get familiar with the course. They get familiar with the way I structure a course. How do I do this? Well, I actually open the class up on Thursday, the week before the class actually starts. So on that Thursday, they have access to the practice lesson and to my general course information, which includes things like my syllabus. So those are the only things they can do. So they can only access the course information, the syllabus, and the practice lesson. Then I generally go ahead on Saturday and open up the whole class so that they can actually start the first lesson. And that gives them an early start on the class. Some students will take advantage of it. Others don't. There's no advantage to them other than getting an earlier start on the class. So they don't get any extra benefit from doing this. And I do leave the practice lesson open the entire full week of class, first week of class, so that students can all have access to it that first week. It just gives some students a little earlier access, and especially in those highly compressed courses where they really find it useful to get that extra jump on the class. Now let me go ahead and jump over and we'll take a look at how I set this up. And here what we have is my class here, or one of my classes at least. And when we go into the content, that very first week, all the students will be able to see is the first two things. So that very first couple of days, they will be able to see only these two items. That is my introduction and syllabus materials and the practice lesson. So what do I do in a practice lesson? Well, if you've seen my course structure, the practice lesson is structured exactly the same. And what that means is there is a lecture section which has lecture materials for them. There's not really much there. I have a practice lecture video they can watch. I have the lecture slides they can access. And I have just a quick lecture materials file here that they can access. So if they want to access the practice lecture video, if they just want to see how that works, it actually opens right in the window there. They can go ahead and play that if they want. It does look a little bit strange in here, but when you actually started playing, it will show a little more normally. So that's one for the practice lesson there. Now under practice discussions, I give them just a discussion. This has nothing else to do with it. All they have to do is go in and post anything they want to their discussion. So they can go ahead and then post to this. So if they want to go ahead and go to that and start posting, they can just access it directly here. Again, it gives them a chance to just post anything they want as a test for it, just to practice with it. Now for many students who are experienced with online classes, they probably don't need all this, and some of them completely skip it. Others find it actually useful, especially those who are not as familiar with the structures of online classes. And then under practice assignments, I give them a Dropbox assignment that they can submit, and I tell them just submit a file. Just add a file, submit it, and that will count as your practice assignment. I give them a practice quiz where they can take a quiz, practice taking a couple multiple choice questions, and it will give them a grade, but it doesn't actually count for anything. And then there's a practice lab quiz. Because of the way I set up my labs there on quizzes, I give them a practice on that because I have them do things a little differently than I do in others. And I'll talk about that a little bit in another video. And then at the end, there's a practice checklist. And as I've looked at before, in order to access the checklist, you do have to open them in a new window. They will not open directly within the content in the new Brightspace. Now, one other thing I do with this is that I give them a chance for some extra credit here. I actually mention it in my lecture video if they watch that. But they have one where they can just create a little document file, put their name, the class, the current date and time, and then submit that file and get a few extra credit points. Gives me an idea of how many people actually went through the lecture, the whole practice lesson, and gives me an idea as how useful it is. Some semesters I might only get 2 or 3 students doing the whole thing and getting the extra credit. Other times I'll get, almost half the class getting the extra credit there. Really just depends on how many students feel like doing it at that point. So really it just sets up, it gives the students a chance to really go ahead and play with the class a little bit in a way that won't affect anything. So nothing in here affects their grade. They can simply play with the lecture videos. They can play with the discussion. They can play with the assignments, submit them as many times as they want just for practice. Again, for most students, they'll just go through it, but others do appreciate having the chance to kind of get an idea of how the class is going to be structured and getting used to that before the actual class starts. So that concludes this discussion on using a practice lesson in a class. I'll be back again next time for another teaching tip and thought. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you next time.